I'm Dr. Barry, a licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. And Sarah, you were like, "You sure know how to pick them." Well, this was one that was requested by you all. So when I was covering the Ali Abulaban case, somebody was like, "You have to check out Nancy." And this case has a lot of twists and turns. She testified in her own defense, which likely didn't help her case that much. There was a lot of evidence. The victim, who is her husband, his family testified against her. And like the evidence was just so clear. And before we take a look at her testimony, we're going to take a look at some of her writings that she had done in the past where she pretty much details how, uh, somebody could try to get away with unaliving their partner, and the fact that she comes off narcissistic is another thing that I wanted to talk about, because sometimes people think that they're too smart for their own good, and those are the ones that often feel the need to tell their story. And I think the fact that she's a storyteller in general, she wanted to be a writer. It's my understanding that her writing wasn't all that great. She didn't work for a publishing house, or writing was something that I think she wanted to do full time, but it wasn't something that was widely distributed or known. And oh, her husband was the one who probably could have been a famous chef. Like, it sounds like he had a lot of great skills. It sounds like he was really loved and appreciated within the community. And let me know as you all have questions along the way. So, we don't have actual handwriting. What we have is a blog post. And so, first, I want to start with just a general overview for anyone that's brand new to this case. So, romance writer Nancy Compton Brophy, she's accused, but she was ultimately convicted of unaliving her husband, Dan Brophy, in June 2018. And she was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole, I think after 25 years, June 13th, 2022. And let's see. So this trial was about 2 years ago, and that's where this coverage is coming from. So Nancy, when she was 72 years old, she so there's certain words I have to avoid for anyone that's new here. There's certain words that the tube does not like if you say it, but so I sometimes, especially at the beginning of the video, I have to use certain language. But she pew pew her husband. It sounds like it was in the back. She There was 2 different times that he was hit, and it resulted in his death. And this was at the Oregon Culinary Institute, where he was a well-respected instructor, to the point where they considered closing the entire program. Some students actually dropped out of the program because they were really there because of him. It just sounds like he was just really, really loved in the community. And once again, his name is Daniel, and his mom and possibly his father, because I didn't follow all of this case. I've been catching up in the last 24 hours or so to prepare for this, presentation today. But at the trial, the prosecution said that Nancy plotted for months to unalive her husband in order to cash in on his $1.4 million life insurance policy and own their $300,000 home. The prosecution said that they were struggling financially, and the fall before he was unalived, the couple took out $35,000 from his retirement account, or about half of its total, to catch up with mortgage and credit card payments. It's my understanding that she had a spending habit that was pretty high, and it sounds like she wanted to do nice things, and he was content just like going under the radar. It's my understanding he made maybe about $50,000 at the job that he did. It sounded like he just wanted a more stress-free life, and he wasn't trying to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and that's more what she wanted. And um, according to her Amazon author profile, her first published work was a pamphlet for the University of Houston titled Between Your Navel and Your Knees, about the changing mores of sexuality in the 1960s and 70s. She also wrote for trade journals and human resources departments, but her true love was storytelling. And remember this, because she's going to try to get on the stand and tell this story that just doesn't make sense. And we're definitely going to check out the cross examination, because they are going to come for a lot of the inconsistencies and some of the issues with the evidence. So when the defendant gets up on the stand, the prosecution is able to ask them direct questions about the evidence. And her responses were, we will definitely get to that. In 2003, she joined the local chapter of Romance Writers of America and started publishing novellas and romantic suspense novels whose titles included The Wrong Lover, The Wrong Hero, The Wrong Husband. Good gosh. Oh, good gosh. Yeah. And so, once again, I wish people would just like divorce. Like, if you're not happy, just leave the person or manage that. Like, but don't do crimes. Just don't do crimes. Makes things a lot easier. I'm going to come back to the chat just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Yes, and so once again, thank you to the person that suggested it. I had never heard about this. Her cross-examination, once we get there, it was so good. And I have the link to the article that I read. I have it down in the description. I didn't realize I didn't make myself smaller. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, Sarah. This is right in Oregon. So I have a dark sense of humor. So that's my warning. None of this is actually funny, but when you look at some of the and her just some things are so shocking, all you can do is kind of laugh a little. So please know, if I ever show a little bit of my humor, or if that's not your thing, feel free to like, that's fine. But some of this is a bit like, she really, really was having her own Lifetime movie. Lisa, you sent me a case as well. I did check it out. It is a heartbreaking case, and I might be doing that maybe over later in the summer. But you sent me a cold case as well, and I will likely be taking a look at that one maybe sometime over this summer. It was a really, really heavy case. And I'm glad that the parents in that case survived, but it's a very, very tough case. So now let's get into some coverage of this case. Let's go here. There was a court TV video that at least talks about Dan a little bit, because once again, like, he really was well loved. And so before we get into some of her foolishness, like, I would just want to let somebody talk about Dan a little bit.
At the Oregon Culinary Institute, where he taught. Now, he had been shot twice, once in the back and then once in the chest. Now, today, Dan's father testified for the state and painted a picture of what Dan Brophy was like for this jury. Take a listen.
Do live life by example.
And some people that have hearing issues are wearing headphones, and that's because of hearing. The audio is boosted from the questions into the headphones. So that's what the headphones are about. Once again, this is Dan's father.
Okay. Did you ever get a chance to work with Dan?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in what respect?
Well, that's what I'm asking. In what capacities did you get the chance to work with Dan?
Oh, mostly as he's older and married at his house, in his yard, in his garage, in his house.
Okay. So helping him out around the house, doing things around the house.
Trying to,
Okay.
you know, if you can make sense out of the mayhem he lived with.
Yeah. Yeah, we've heard a little bit about his garden and the chickens and the garage and stuff. Would you categorize that as mayhem?
Mayhem in big time.
Okay.
And so Dan used to actually sell some of the produce and the things that he grew in his own garden back to his students or former students so that they could use fresh products. And he was selling them at a discounted rate. He would also have these contests where he would collect pies and then he would donate them to people in need. And so it really just sounds like he was a really caring guy, and he just really sounds like a good guy.
Did it seem to make sense to Dan though?
Oh yeah, none of it was a problem.
Yeah.
I think it's genetic, I decided. Karen's dad was very much that way. I'd try and straighten out his shop or tools, and then it disintegrated. Same is true with Dan. I spent years trying to get his shop and tools and stuff in order, with to no avail. And then his mother has pretty much the same problem.
Was Dan much into the tools in the shop, or was he more interested in the gardening and
More interested in the garden. He was interested in the tools, but he spent his life looking for them.
In your opinion, when looking at Dan and his work,
I love how he's like making these little jokes because he's throwing some. He's been to me. He said a comment that the chaos that he lived with. I think he's kind of talking about his daughter-in-law a little bit too, and he just the the father here. He just seems like a good guy as well.
work ethic, or just the amount that he was working, did you think that he worked a lot?
Oh, he worked a lot. He worked all the time.
Okay. And not just at work, where he's employed, but around the house too. Was he always busy?
I'm not sure.
Depends on what his interest level was at that given time. The chickens were top priority.
Court TV legal correspondent Julia Jeanette.
All right, and so let's share her blog post, y'all. The blog post is titled "How to Murder Your Husband," which was allegedly written in 2011 by Nancy Brophy, who was put on trial in April for unaliving her husband in 2018. As a romantic suspense writer, I spend a lot of time thinking about and consequently police procedure. After all, if the is supposed to set me free, I certainly don't want to spend time in jail. Y'all, let me know in the comments if this article was shared with the jury. So did the jury know that she had written this? Because if I was on the jury and I saw this, I would it would not look good for her. Going back to this. And let me say clearly for the record, I don't like jumpsuits and orange is not my color. Motives. Financial. Divorce is expensive. And do you really want to split your possessions? Or if you married for money, aren't you entitled to all of it? The drawback is that the police aren't stupid. They are looking at you first. So you have to be organized, ruthless, and very clever. Husbands have disappeared from cruise ships before. Why not yours? What? Y'all. Crime of passion. In anger, you do those things. Most of the time, there is a trail that directly leads to you. Every unalive leaves cues. A crime of passion does not look like a stranger was involved. And who is left to clean the from your carpet? Fell in love with someone else? Let's say your church frowns on divorce. You need to be a widow so you won't fall out of favor. I should mention that it helps if you aren't too burdened by the 10 commandments. Like this, after I saw this, I was like, I have to cover this case. I have to cover this case. And my understanding is this was a blog post. It wasn't a book. That's my understanding of what this was. Like, it's my understanding that her writing was bad. Please don't. Like, but more in a antisocial way, because this sounds planned. This does not sound like she's connected to a reality. It's very much antisocial. Very much antisocial. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Options to consider. Pew pews. Loud, messy, requires some skill. If it takes 10 shots for the sucker to die, either you have terrible aim or he's on drugs. Knives, really personal. Blood everywhere. Ew. Gr- What's that word? Garrotes? I don't know that word. How much okay, so maybe there's something I don't know that word. Garrotes. How much upper body strength does it require to do that to someone? Random heavy pieces of equipment, and it's my understanding that before he was shot, that their bathroom, like, I think it's like a glass door in their bathroom, like a shower door or something, fell on him, and he was significantly injured, and a lot of people were wondering, was that her first attempt before doing this? So, random heavy pieces of equipment usually involves hitting someone hard with a baseball bat or pipe wrench you just happen to have in your hand. Poison, considered a woman's weapon. Arsenic is easy to obtain, and worse, easy to trace. And worse, thank goodness it's easy to trace. It takes a month or two to, oh my gosh, like, just who would write this stuff publicly? Like, I think that she didn't think she would ever get caught. I don't know. Like, I am trying to understand, but this fantasy became a reality in this case. And it seems like as her financial difficulties became more and more problematic and worse, because it's my understanding that she sold the insurance that ended up resulting in the $1.4 million policy. It's my understanding that she sold insurance because she was trying to say that they purchased the policy because she would get a commission on the policy. They were trying to say something like that, but it seemed to be clear that there was a financial motive in this case. I find it's easier to wish people dead than actually unalive them. But the thing I know about murder is that every one of us has it in him or herself when pushed far enough. And that's where individuals with narcissistic personality traits, they think their experience is everyone else's experience. And so most people, their morals, like, there are things that would stop them from doing something like this. This was just very, very strange. So I definitely had to share that. We are going to get to day one of her testimony. Here we go. Believe it's this one. Yes. I'm going to come back to the chat just to see. Oh, so problematic. Very, very problematic. Ooh, thank you for this. So I had never heard of this. Garrote, maybe? A device used. Wow. I didn't know that. I did not know that was a thing. Thank y'all. The chat is amazing. That's why I like to do these live. Like, one of the reasons I don't just record the video all by myself is because I like to do these live. All right. And he was so supportive. And I don't think he ever saw this coming. I don't think he ever thought that she would do this to him. Like, it just seems like he was loving and caring and just so supportive. It just really seems that way. It's very, very sad. All right. So let's get into her testimony. It starts off weird.
My name is Nancy Crampton Brophy. That's NANCY CRAMPTON BROPHY.
And she's wearing headphones to increase the audio because she's hard of hearing. So that's why she's wearing headphones.
All right. When defense is ready.
And it's going to start with her defense attorney questioning her.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me know if you can't hear me,
I will.
because you can't read my lips.
Sorry.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Wichita Falls, Texas.
And how big is...
I've never seen a defendant start off that way. She seems almost happy to be there. She seems happy to be up there. And I don't know if she's trying to come off as charming and as lighthearted. I'm so innocent. I'm not nervous or scared at all. Like, I don't know if that's how she's trying to come off, but she seems happy. And like y'all are saying, jovial, excited to be on the stand, which is a little odd to me. And Barb, you're right. Negative attention. And this is why I think she wanted to testify. I think she has been in her mind rehearsing what the story she's going to tell, how she's going to turn things around. I definitely think there was a lot of false confidence. And I think that happened in the Ali Abulaban case as well. And I've been covering a lot of male narcissists. So that's why I wanted to like cover some women too, because I felt like a lot of my coverage more recently, it was a lot of like homicidal men. And so I wanted to kind of I wanted to balance things out a little on the channel. Like she just wants the attention. I totally agree. And if you could, it just helps the little algorithm. If you could like the video, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So it's gonna get worse, but let's go.
Wichita Falls, Texas.
It's 100,000, but a lot of that is the air base that's there.
Okay. When did you move to Oregon?
1990 or 1991,
And why did you move to Oregon?
because I wanted to take a year off, and I thought going to culinary school sounded like a whole lot more fun than saying, "Oh, I'm just taking a year off."
Okay. Do you remember the first time you saw Dan Brophy?
Oh yeah.
Tell me about it.
I culinary school in Western Culinary, which was where I was, had a program where 101 was the first class you took, and it was 6 weeks long, and you were separated out from the rest of the.
Okay. So I am a baby YouTuber and I don't have a way yet to boost the audio. I will try. I tried to do like a Chrome extension. So what I'll try to do is turn my volume down so that like on my mic, I'll try to come back off of my mic so it's not as loud when I start talking. Um I have a volume booster, but I don't know if it's gonna boost it on your end. So let me know if this sounds a little bit better. We will see if this sounds a little better. So I just boosted it just in case.
Students. So when we joined the students, Dan had been hired either that day or the day before. So it was like we all came together at the same place at the same time.
Had you ever met a guy anything like Dan Brophy before you met him?
No, no. He was unique.
Can you tell us 5 things about him, maybe 5 things that separated him from the pack for you?
He was smart. He was really smart. And he was funny. I laughed all the time when I was with him, and a lot of people going, "What'd he say? What'd he say? What'd he say?" Because he was very dry in his sense of humor. He was kind. He was so kind. That probably won me over.
I think they asked this question to humanize her a little bit, to make it seem like she loved him so much. How could she do this? But even when she was kind of asked about how they met, So, like, if somebody asked me how I first met my husband, I would talk about, like, when I first saw him, or just, the first place we went, or I would talk about it the way she's answering the questions, it seems very methodical. And, I did watch some other coverage, of her, and some of that comes from some other people that I viewed. The behavior panel covered her, and there were a few other people that I saw cover her as well.
More than lots of other things might have. He not only thought outside the box, this man lived outside the box. He really did not operate going forward the way most of us did. But the thing I probably liked the best about him, the thing he loved me. And if that isn't a big, I don't know, a big
Okay. So, once again, when we talk about individuals with narcissistic traits, now I don't know her. I'm just telling you some of the things that I'm seeing. This is based on what she's saying and how she's saying it. If the thing that you love most about somebody is just how much they love you back, and that's the thing that's making her kind of become a little emotional, but I don't know if it's a true emotion or if she's trying to muster up some emotion with this as well. A lot of it is going to be about her. Similar to the Ali Abulaban, but he's more of that malignant, not like he's more of the like ooh, aggressive, clearly just DV type person. In my opinion, she comes off as more of the covert, where you might just feel a little uncomfortable, but not exactly know why. A lot of her things aren't like overtly narcissistic until you just kind of keep listening and we get a little deeper into things.
number one item. I don't know what is, you know, and I loved him back.
How many years were you together?
24 years, 10 months, 2 days.
That's pretty precise. What are you measuring from?
We were friends.
Now, so Lisa, so everybody likes being liked. Does that make sense? So like the way a person makes you feel, like a being like liking a person. So I'm not saying that's the only thing, but for her, there are going to be some other things that come up later that might have you kind of know what I'm thinking. The Ali, like I'm waiting because the jury started deliberating yesterday, and I don't know if they come back on Tuesday. I don't know if they broke for the night or if they come back on Tuesday. I did see news reports that the jury started deliberating yesterday after closing arguments.
For a couple of years before before our friendship moved further. I count it from the time our friendship moved further. You can be friends with a lot of people, but it doesn't count. You know, once you said we're committing to others, people in other ways, then that's where I start the counting
Did you and Dan Brophy complete each other or balance each other out?
completely. I'm a flawed person. Dan's a flawed person. We came together and made up one really good team. He his weaknesses were my strengths. My strengths tended to be his weaknesses. And together, it just fit immediately and never stopped.
When the two of you were together, did you try to give him a platform from which he could do his very best work?
I did. I did. Dan was bright. He was funny. He was lots of things, but he was also humble. And this is a man who needed a cheerleader. And I was his cheerleader. And this was not a one-way street. He was mine as well. But I helped him become more known for who he was. And because he would have just stayed in the shadows, he was that kind of guy. And he needed somebody to say, hey, this guy over here, he's really, really smart. You ought to listen to him, you know?
We've heard a lot during this trial about Dan and his demeanor in social settings.
Hmm.
Uh, is it fair to say that Dan was socially unaware?
No, no. Dan Dan was very aware. He just wasn't a big participant. He didn't need to fill in the blank space. You know, a lot of times when there's a void in the conversation, somebody absolutely feels that they have to jump in and say something. Not Dan. Dan's perfectly okay with silence. So I'm sorry to say I lost the direction I was going.
And she's gonna do that a few times. She's gonna get caught up in what she's saying and lose her train of thought. I have a lot of, I have some compassion for that because that happens to me as well. But she really does get lost in the story that she's telling, and then she'll have to get help getting back to what she was
There.
saying.
I'm
Okay, let me
so
ask you this.
sorry. I was supposed to be paying attention, but I
Let me
went
stop
off.
you. Let
Okay.
me stop you. You've been described as the one who had better social skills, or the front of the house, I
Yeah.
think is what someone said, and that Dan was back doing the cooking or
Mm-hmm.
preparing meals or being the quiet guy to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Were there times that Dan helped you socially?
Oh yeah. Oh, as someone said earlier, I'm a chatter, and I don't remember who said that, but I am a chatter, and I can just start running. And I never met a rabbit hole I didn't like. And there were times that Dan would come out, and he would be so subtle, and he would make this little move, and I knew I needed to calm down, back up, because he was trying to help me not run away with things.
Let
But
me back you up.
oh, sorry.
I could see just based on her personality that sometimes she might not realize that maybe people aren't really paying attention or that maybe she needed to wrap it up and she might kind of go off and just and people not be there with her anymore and he kind of had to be like and she would come back. I thought that was hilarious because there are going to be times where she's going to get going and you're going to be like, what is this? What is going on? So I like squirrel moments. That's what I call them. So I get like these random. That's why sometimes I have to click off the chat because get distracted by all that's happening there. This is just and they're going to try her defense is kind of that she wasn't there and so she researched ghost guns and there's a piece missing from the weapon that was fired that was likely fired. The police believe that was the one that was fired. And it's my understanding that she had put it in storage because when they asked her about any weapons that they had, she gave them a different one, but she did not give them that one. And that one was put away in storage, but I guess it was labeled because but like it was labeled. So I guess when they got the search warrant to go check the storage unit, they found it. But the piece missing to say that it was fired, that part was missing.
This move.
This move.
And
And actually he did it. He did it with this hand because it was a C for chill. And it was real calm. If you were standing next to him, you wouldn't have noticed it. But I was looking at him, I knew exactly what he meant.
So they had one regular weapon that her husband was probably aware of, but then she had purchased a weapon at a gun show. And she's going to say that he gave her money for it, but she was researching ghost guns and she's going to say she was researching it for a story, but she was trying to find a way to have something that would be difficult to be traced. And that is what she pulled out $400. She's going to try to say that Dan gave her the money for the weapon and he was aware that she was buying it. That does not seem to be true.
you were on your way down a rabbit hole. He had a very subtle way of kind of trying to bring you back.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard that Dan didn't always lock doors. Is that true?
True.
We've heard that he collected stuff, lots of stuff. Is that true?
That's true.
What did you think about that?
One, well, this is a complicated answer. All right. I was perfectly okay with that. And the reason why I was perfectly okay with that is Dan didn't collect stuff that didn't mean anything. Everything he collected, he had a purpose for, or he could see a future purpose for. It wasn't like, he was gathering stuff didn't need. It was gathering stuff that he could see he would need, maybe not today, but next week. To give you the best example of that, I was still catering and in a kitchen I didn't own when Dan encouraged me and I did it, started purchasing equipment. By the time I had my own kitchen, because of Dan's help on this, I was ready to go.
I forgot what the question was. Did y'all forget the question? I totally forgot the question. I think she's giving the answer and telling the story that she wants to tell. I have no clue. I have no clue what I don't know how we got here. I don't I don't know how we got here. So this was 2022. So I don't the trial was 21 days, it sounds like. I'm not sure if it started in 2021, but it was face mask. She had on a face mask when she went up there. She actually asked to be released from jail because of COVID, and I don't believe she was. But yes. So this was back during those times. They had some witnesses testify via Zoom or by like electronically. So
Had all the equipment I needed. I didn't have to stop and buy equipment. Dan had the kind of vision
oh, that's
where
right.
you could see it further down the road.
Okay.
And he had that vision for me and he had that vision for himself as well.
Okay.
Did Dan, did Dan tend to, well, I don't want to use that word. Would it be fair to say that Dan's kind of working style, at least to the untrained observer, seemed chaotic?
Oh yeah. Even to his wife, there were times when it seemed chaotic.
It's weird for me when people refer to themselves in the third person. I want to say that is like that's just weird because she's up there. She is his wife. Like she's a. It's just weird to me, but it's fine. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit and then we will definitely get to the cross examination.
And if you continue to pay the premiums on that policy for a year,
Mhm.
you'd be able to keep the commission.
Mhm.
So was it kind of like a no interest loan?
That was exactly what it was like.
Now let's talk about this other quick Band-Aid that you talked about, the Forester's policy. Forester's is a weird kind of policy, right?
It is.
I shouldn't call it weird. It's just unique.
It is unique.
And does it have a savings component to it?
Yes. You pay a premium. Part of it goes for life insurance. Part of it goes to a savings account. And the savings account at the time we bought it, I believe, was 5.85%. Now, real frankly, if we'd put our money in savings in the bank, we would have gotten somewhere maybe 1% of interest. This gave us 5.85, and it was required savings. You might not have noticed this, but I'm betting you did, that I am not a saver. And so being forced to save helped me, and that was what we liked best about that.
So she's desperately trying to explain away the financial part. And once again, because she was incarcerated for a period of time before coming here, and she's had time to think about this, I think she's come up with a narrative in her head of how she's going to try to explain this away. And she's going to be very passionate, I think, trying to talk about this because this goes to motive.
Also, I can, no, we're
No,
not
but-
going down that rabbit hole.
When you put money, when you paid this premium, part
Right.
of it went into the savings account, part of it went toward the life insurance benefit.
Exactly. And when we borrowed from the savings account.
So you're actually taking money out of your own savings account.
That's right.
And when you pay that back, do you pay it back with interest?
You don't ever have to pay it back. They don't care. It's, because you're continuing to put more money in each month.
Okay, so we're here for the interruptions. And so, Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And then, like, he talks about the self-stitching. Like, that's Bruce Rivers. That's his theme song. I don't watch all his stuff, but I'm definitely subbed over there, and I do watch, Bruce Rivers coverage as well. He gives good legal advice as a defense lawyer, I think. So, yeah. She's just very difficult to listen to.
But they don't care if you don't pay it back. It doesn't bother them at all. I never got a done letter from them. Said really you need to pay this back. It was interest free, and we didn't pay it back.
So that was a good Band-Aid.
That was a good Band-Aid.
I want to kind of jump back in time because I can go down rabbit holes too. I want to talk to you
I've
about.
trained you well.
I want to talk to you about the earlier years of your marriage and talk about the financial stability kind of early on.
Okay.
There was testimony, I think, by Tiffany Couch regarding your 1999 tax return.
Mm-hmm.
After you got out of culinary school, did you start a business?
I did.
And what was its name?
Chef de jour catering.
And in 1997, what year did you begin?
When did we start? We started in 92.
Okay. And did it take a few years before that company started to make money?
Yes. They say if you start your own business, it takes 5 years. And at 3.5 years, we could see it. It wasn't there yet, but we could see that this was going to be a money-making thing.
Okay. And was it a money-making thing by 1997?
Yes, it was. 97, 98, 99, the year 2000, we made serious money. And serious enough money that we put $40,000 down out of Chef de Jour.
She seems very happy talking about this time, and I think this was probably a happy time for her, I could imagine. Like, I think she felt more comfortable when this was the time that they were in, which, like, she seems proud of this part to me.
On a house. Now Dan put down 10,000, which was a gift from his parents, but $40,000 that came from Chef de Jour. We
What?
took a.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. We took a month-long trip to Asia, and in that month-long trip, we took a week-long cooking class in Bangkok at the Oriental Hotel. It was fabulous.
I think this was the part she liked. So I think she wanted to travel. I think and that's what she said. Not in her testimony, I don't believe, but the prosecution believed that she wanted to be free from him so that she could go and explore. Cause it's almost like she thought she needed to visit these places to write about them and that would help her storytelling. It was, it was odd.
That was a time in our lives where we had money and it was comfortable, and life is always easy when you don't have any external issues. It's
Talk-
not can you get through the good times, it's can you get through the bad times.
It's true. I want to talk about buying that house.
Okay.
You said that you took 40 grand out of the business
Mhm.
as part of the down payment,
Mm-hmm.
and that Dan got 10 from his parents
Mm-hmm.
to help with the down payment.
Mhm.
When you first bought that house, were you both on the mortgage?
We were.
And how did you plan? What was your plan between the two of you for covering that mortgage?
The mortgage fell to me. One, I made more money, but two, it made more sense for me to pay the mortgage and for him to pay the other things. And that's how we worked it out.
When you first bought that house, you were on the mortgage. Were you also on the deed?
Yes.
And after 9/11,
Hmm.
what happened to the catering business?
Oh man, I was scrambling to keep it together. And I was watching fellow caterers drop like flies. I used to joke that the only business worse to be in at that point was to be a florist. Nobody was partying. People were putting things off like marriages and things like that. And I mean, I was really working to hold on to it. And then we had a couple of fortunate things happen. you know, that it allowed me to get through the rough period. And, but we tightened our belts and got through it.
Well, this period right after 9/11, when it all just kind of becomes difficult and stressful,
Mhm.
is that a period in which you refinanced the house in 2000?
Probably.
Let me show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 205.
Can you fast
See
forward
this
a little?
property report.
Yes.
All right, so we're not going to worry about that part. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit more.
Did we start in 2015?
We did.
And you sold 12 policies.
Mhm.
What happened in 2016?
I'm trying to remember the number of policies I sold. It's, I want to say 50, but it could have been less than that. But in 2017, when we figured out how this worked and Dan and I had come up with the plan, I figured out enough about Medicare that I wasn't fumbling in the dark. I sold 120 policies. I was considered one of the outstanding salespeople with United Health.
That's where she kind of makes it about her. But like, I don't, it's weird because then sometimes she tries to make herself the victim too. It's a very interesting back and forth. To me.
Healthcare who was operating with them, and they told me this on a regular basis because I sold that many policies, and it wasn't that hard. You just had to commit to things.
What
I
did,
was. I'm
what did
sorry.
you have to do to sell those policies? We heard about kiosks because I keep talking about them.
Right?
Tell us about a Medicare kiosk.
Well, I'm trying to remember how many days a week it was, but it ended up being a total of 6 days a week. I was in a Fred Meyer's kiosk in Oregon City. In McMinnville, I was in a Walgreens kiosk. I
Okay, this is going to be more, to me, this isn't getting to a lot of the actual evidence. I am just going to check to see if there was anything in part two of her testimony. Because once again, she is putting together a narrative that she wants to portray to the jury. So let's start here. This is the afternoon session of uh her first day of testimony.
I want to show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 380. It'll show up there on your, oh, that's not it.
Can we take that down?
I have a 3.
Your Honor, it's a page out of the on-point records. First of all, that's an on-point account statement record. Is that right?
That's true.
And was that on-point account a joint account that you had with Dan Brophy?
Yes.
They didn't de-identify anything. Are they allowed to do that? I guess. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about that was just a little stray thought that had not made its way into an earlier conversation that we were having. Dan's, James Denny talked about the fact that Dan, he could see that Dan's, underneath all the brush and everything, Dan's garden was actually just a beautiful treasure. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
And did the two of you believe, you talked about the fact that you were going to sell the house,
Right.
but did the two of you believe that if you could get that garden restored to something of its past glory, that it would increase the value of your home?
Yes, we did.
So the two of you decided to get the house ready to sell.
Mhm.
And that decision started to kind of come to the fore in what year, do you think?
Where we were truly starting to work on it, I would say was 2017.
Okay. But we can tell from your Dearest Dan letter that at least you'd been teasing through the idea of subdivision maybe as early as what, 2015?
Yes.
So as it starts to become sort of this idea that now is gelling, what did you think you might do after you sold the house? Did you know?
No. And we went through a lot of different plans.
Okay, we've heard testimony from people who talked about that you were talking about going to Portugal.
Yes.
Was that one of your plans?
I thought that would be fun. And I think Dan flirted with the idea, but in the end, he he put a little bit.
It's weird for her to laugh right there when she's talking about I'm gonna go back a little bit because they're asking about her plans because her husband isn't here anymore. She ends up with all this money, and if she's gonna say that he wasn't on board with Portugal, okay, I'm gonna go back just a little bit.
Was that one of your plans?
I thought that would be fun. And I think Dan flirted with the idea, but in the end, he he put a little pin in my balloon, and said, "You would be miserable. I would be miserable if we were that far from family." And I agreed with him.
Okay.
This is my personal thought. I personally don't believe that she agreed with him. I don't believe that she agreed with him that it was best that they not go to Portugal and that they remain in Oregon. Because I think she wanted this glamorous life, like, I think she wanted this life that was different from what he wanted. Ugh, very, very sad.
What did you and Dan like to travel together?
We did. We thought we were at our best.
Okay. Did Dan offer a compromise to maybe moving to Portugal?
He did. He felt like what we should do is take a multitude of smaller trips, uh, rather than a big trip. And so that he could continue to garden and I could continue to do what I needed to do as well. And yet we would still have the experience of being together and going places that were fun and different.
Okay. In early 2017, did you do one of those trips?
We did.
What'd you do?
I was invited to speak on a cruise ship for a writers conference. I have a talk I give called Redeeming Your Antagonist. You'd think I could remember. Redeeming Your Antagonist. And I said, "You want to come?" And he said, "Sure." And so we flew to Fort Lauderdale, took the cruise, took a cooking class, and came home.
Okay.
The way that she's talking about this just doesn't sound like a grieving wife to me. It just doesn't sound that way. So I do this to protect my license, y'all. I'm over here with a whole license. People get mad in the comments, but it's not y'all. It's not the 130 of y'all that I worry about. It's the just a few, like 1% of the replay crew sometimes. Somebody was really kind because somebody got mad about the way I said geez or something on another video. And I was just like, thank you for that feedback. I have a speech impediment. And so, like, I'm going to say it how I say it. And somebody did a heart after that one. And people are strange. Thank you, Lisa. I do. I qualify it. To me, that does not seem accurate. That's my way of saying she lying.
Um, did you take another trip later
That's my
in
mama. Hey,
2017?
mama.
No, I think, well, to the beach, yes, yes, but we didn't really regard that. We regarded that as, a good weekend. That wasn't really a vacation plan so much, but we went to the beach several times.
Okay. And then was there more of a planned trip that happened right at the beginning of 2018?
There was.
And what was that trip?
Uh, Dan's favorite restaurant in the entire world, and we've traveled enough that I think it's a fairly thing. At one point, used to be considered one of the top 5 restaurants in the world. It's just outside of Victoria, and it's on Vancouver Island, and it's called Sook Harbor House. And it is in the town of Sook Harbor. It is a B&B, and it is a restaurant, but they were one of the first in the nation who did
All of this extra information is not needed. None of this extra information is needed. Okay, y'all, we have to get over to the cross examination because it is spicy. It gets a little spicy. I want to make sure that it didn't start this day. I don't believe. Okay. So this part seems like it's a big replay part. So let's skip ahead to right about here. Let's see. Let's see what's right here.
Uh, and, I was constantly having to think of my way through every step of my day, saying, okay, we're going to do this now. Step, step, breathe, step, step. Um, yeah, Dan used to claim we had a pair of glasses within 10 feet of us at all points. And I went through
A lot of sniffling, no tears. I hear a lot of sniffling. I do not. Her nose looks a little red, but I do not see a single tear.
periods where I couldn't find a single pair. Um, it just, everything, when I went through the house, this is when I went to the house, every room was memories. And they were all good memories, but they were all sad memories at this point because Dan wasn't there. My friend Rita came to see me, a couple of years before.
That eye roll she does, because like she's talking about her friend coming to visit her, but the way that she did that eye roll, I'm gonna go back so y'all can see it because she's talking about her friend coming to visit her, but the emotion I'm getting is a little annoyance or something. It's strange. It's just strange to me.
Friend Rita came to see me, a couple of years before. And I was cleaning up and I turned to Dan and I said,
Or it could be like what she's doing when she's thinking, but it's very strange to me.
you know, I could use your help here. And Dan says, what do you want from me? I have put out the welcoming squash and all over the living room, tucked into all bookcases and everything, were squash, winter squash, because he grew winter squash. And so now when I'm sitting in my living room, I'm looking at this and I'm remembering the winter. I'm remembering the winter squash, and I'm laughing and crying all at the same time. And that's how the whole house is for us. Uh, you know, and I expect him to walk in the door any day and say, they made a mistake.
So I think she thought she was smart and that there wasn't going to be enough evidence. And who would think little old her? Like who would think she could do something like this? I think she thought that she really could get away with it because the way that it happened, so he always got to the Culinary Institute early. And um, so he gets there and he always unlocks the door for the students. What likely happened was that she came in and while he was not even looking, because I believe he was shot in the back. So he probably wasn't even looking. He was shot twice and then she left and she locked the door. And so when the students came, the door is normally unlocked because he always got there early. But they thought, oh, maybe something happened. And so there was this period of time where the door is locked and nobody knows that he's already in there. The students that find him, of course, are very distraught. They call the police. She actually calls his mother before the police have told her, before they've told Nancy that he's deceased. So she calls his mother to tell her that her son is deceased and the police haven't even called her yet. So there was a lot of evidence and we're going to get to that on the cross examination. But right now I think she's trying to show some grief, but y'all so let's keep going.
I don't know how it happened, but here I am. I saw him walking all the time. He would be a little ahead of me, and I would want to run up to that guy because there'd be something about him, and I knew it wasn't him. I expected him until actually fairly recently to walk into the trial and go, "What the?"
So people don't like to get caught. And so that I could see her possibly crying for herself. I also think she desperately wanted to tell her story. And people likely looked her up. Like, this was portrayed as this romance novelist. Like, she got the type of press that she probably always wanted, but not she probably didn't want it quite like this, because I think she thought she was going to get away with it. And because I think she thought she had thought of everything. But don't do crimes. Don't do crimes.
The hell is going on? He probably wouldn't swear that much, but you know, it's he's gone and he's not gone. He's with us all the time. You know, I talk to him every day. He's a little quiet.
That reminds me of the Lori Vallow. I visit with them. That reminds me of that. It really does. I'm gonna fast forward a little.
How many do you think came in and out?
Probably somewhere between 25 and 35.
Did you know them all?
Yes, I did actually.
Well, what about the people like that, oh, my brother's guy?
No, yeah. Okay. I didn't know those people.
I think she's remembering what she wanted to say. I think her and her lawyer likely prepared that, and she had something prepared for what she wanted to say. Um, all right, all right. So I don't want to miss the cross examination because I think it might start right around here. All right. So let's play from about here.
Carry a wallet.
No.
How did you carry your critical pieces of information, like an ID and stuff like that?
In my bra. I know that's weird, but so much of what I did was not aided by having a purse. So I had my phone in my bra. If I needed a driver's license or a card, and I rarely had cash. So in my bra.
And you wrote this letter to Dan in 2015.
I did.
That's been referred to a couple of times. After you wrote that, did you print it?
Yes.
And what did you do with it?
I put it in an envelope, and it was a purple folder, and I put it on a desk that we shared. So if something happened and he came back and had to go through the desk, he would see it first thing.
And that was the only thing in that envelope?
Yes. Oh, no, there was probably copies of the policies in the envelope in addition, I not only did I give him the information, I gave him the policies themselves.
And how would Dan know to have looked for that letter after, if you were to pass during that time?
I figured sooner or later he would go to our desk, is what I figured.
She seems annoyed to be asked questions. And I think another thing that she's dealing with is she didn't know what to prepare for. And that was probably a question that she didn't prepare for.
That sooner or later he would be looking for something and there would be the photo with Dan on it, and he would see it and read it and realize what he had.
Okay. So you put this letter and some policies perhaps and put them in this envelope, put it on the desk. And,
folder.
I'm sorry, what did
purple,
I say?
You said envelope. It's a purple folder.
Okay.
And I don't know if the defense is going to get things wrong on purpose, because she also looks agitated when they get things wrong. Like, you big dummy. Like, why'd you say this? Like, I didn't say envelope. It's a folder. And she's going to get into that a little bit more. I'm going to rewind it a little bit so y'all can see that, because I don't think that comes across well to the jury. To me, she comes across unlikable, but I think she might perceive that she is likable, but she's not. She's really not.
Realize what he had.
Okay. So you put this letter and some policies perhaps and put them in this envelope, put it on the desk. And,
folder.
I'm sorry, what did
purple,
I say?
You said envelope. It's a purple folder.
Okay. Purple folder. And did you write his name on it?
Yes,
okay.
In big letters.
Did you say something about a picture? Did you not say that?
I don't think so.
Oh, I'm sorry. So it says Dan on it.
Right.
Okay. And is this a folder that closes, or like, is there a snap on it or anything like that?
Can
or-
you hold up that orange folder? Thank you. It's a folder just like this. It's a folder and it's purple.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
And so,
I have never. Now, I've also never heard a prosecutor go back and forth about the specific type of folder, but I think could see that she was looking annoyed, and I think he went back and forth to kinda get her off of her game a little bit. I could see a prosecutor doing that because of how she's reacting about having to explain herself. I don't think she likes doing that. I think with the with her defense lawyers, she had prepped and was prepared. She had no clue what they were gonna ask. And her attorneys probably said, like, they're gonna prep her as best they can, but they don't know every single scenario. They don't know exactly what's gonna be asked.
when you got back from your surgery,
Right.
was that folder still there,
It was.
right where you left it?
Yes.
Was there any indication to you that Dan had ever read that letter?
No. As far as I can tell, Dan never read it.
In that letter, you direct Dan to keep paying on the Americo policy because he'll get the premiums back in 9 years.
Yes, my math skills were a little iffy there.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Is your math wrong, or did you just have a typo, or what?
I'm going to tell you my math was either wrong or I had a typo. I had no idea, but it is wrong. You're absolutely right.
Because it's actually 19 years, right?
No. By that time, it was probably more like 15 years.
So probably not a typo then, because the 9 is. But he had about 15 more years that he needed to pay on.
I did.
Okay. And you knew that. You knew that about the policy.
I did.
And you also knew that if you were to get to that point where you were collecting, or I'm sorry, had the ability to collect the
Right.
premiums back, you knew then that if you were to take that money back, that you'd actually have to give up the policy.
Nope.
You didn't know that?
No. I could continue paying on the policy for Dan, but I could take the money out of it.
Didn't your insurance expert testify? Did you hear him testify and say that if you were to take that money out of that policy, that you would have had to forfeit the policy?
If they said that, I didn't understand, but I can tell you this. They have a schedule in the policy that shows what happens if you have this money.
She's coming across angry, and I don't think this looks good to the jury.
For example, if Dan died when he was 78, we didn't get 100,000 back. We got 167,000 back. But if we took the 67,000 out of it, we could continue paying for the policy. Now, that's not to say it was a 20-year term. That's not to say they might not raise the premium on it, but we could continue paying for it.
You disagree with your insurance expert?
I disagree with that aspect if that's what they really said.
Okay. And this, you said, was part of a big.
It's also interesting when defendants look over at their lawyer. Ali Abulaban did that a lot during his testimony during cross-examination.
Bigger retirement plan, correct?
It was?
Correct. And so, this idea that, I mean, would you agree it's pretty risky?
What is risky?
Well, the one, you have to live to be able to collect on the policy, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay. And if you don't want to give up that well, I guess you disagree with that notion that you have to give up the policy. So I guess I'll just ask you this. You agree that you paid 3 to 6 times
Yes.
more for that policy than what you could have bought a similar coverage for?
I do.
And if I was a lawyer, I would be sitting there like writing. Like I wouldn't even make eye contact with them. Like I would just be like, I don't know what to tell you. I told you not to get up there. Once you get up there, they get to ask you these questions. They're not now the defense will object when they can, but he hasn't done anything that the defense can object about.
And so,
Purposely.
And just asking, did you guys have the thought that, well, maybe we should put this money away and actually be able to access it whenever we need it, instead of risking not getting it at all? Did you have that discussion?
Okay, I need to break that down and answer your
Yeah,
question.
let me ask you in a series of questions.
Okay.
Did you have the discussion with Dan that, well, maybe we don't want to spend all this money on a policy right now. Let's pay for a cheaper policy, but let's put some money away, like as if we were putting it in to the life insurance.
That we would have had that discussion if either one of us were savers.
Yeah.
But at that point, I knew I was not a saver. So I understand this about myself. Part of the reason why I have forced savings policies is because I know I'm not a saver. And if I can put this money away where I can't get to it, we will have it later on when we need it. If we're just doing a savings account or we're investing in the stock market, I'm not good like that.
But you agree that you treated the forester's policy that also had this savings component. It's forced savings, but you were just taking the money.
I took the money out when we needed it because it was there, because why we had it was for A, retirement, but B, emergencies, and this qualified as an emergency.
All right. And so they're going to go back and forth over the financial policies. So she is getting more comfortable in her chair and getting more animated right here. So I'm going to skip ahead to this part.
Dan died, and the time you guys were deciding to sell the house, you two were both relatively healthy still.
Yes.
Could still do the stairs just fine.
I was struggling with arthritis in my knee, but yeah.
Okay, but you didn't. You still had your bedroom upstairs.
We did.
You didn't move down to the main floor to deal with that. I was a little confused about the discussion of the tiny houses.
Oh.
So whose idea was that?
It was Dan's.
Okay.
Dan, who needs more room than anybody I know, said, "Oh, we could live in a tiny house." No, we couldn't. But his fantasy life, like mine, is going to be an expat. Dan's was we could live in these little tiny houses, and that would work fine for us. And I thought, smaller than our kitchen now, which Dan was filling out of. No, we couldn't live like that. And the other thing is you have to be in really good health to live in a tiny house because most of the bedrooms are loft-like bedrooms and you have to climb up this ladder, night and day to get up there. Plus, I mean, real frankly, once you hit that 40 age group, you and I both know that we're up more in the middle of the night than we ever wanted to be. And I don't want to go up and down the stairs or the ladder 18 times in the middle of the night.
The prosecution is just letting her talk. When Ali Abulaban would go off on his tangents, the prosecution would interrupt him because he would get visibly agitated when he was interrupted and he wanted to tell his side. And the prosecution was very clear that he was not answering their questions. And here the prosecution seems to, and maybe because she's older, because they don't want to look like they're bullying her or anything, they seem to be giving her a little bit of room to go off on these little tangents. And she doesn't seem to be helping her case. And the evidence they had was pretty strong. And in my opinion, she's not going to have a really good defense for some of the evidence that they have. Uh, I can relate to her on the tiny homes thing because my husband would love to get a tiny home, and I'm the one that's like, no. He can put a tiny home out behind our home, and he can. So I can kind of relate to her there. But if if I was a suspect in something like this, I wouldn't be laughing like this. Like, to me, she seems to be making light and not fully getting the gravity of the situation that she's in. And I don't know if she thinks that makes her look less guilty, that she is being so lighthearted, but it can go in a way where you come off like you don't care. All right, let's keep going.
So was he joking or?
No, he was serious, but it was a fantasy. It was like lots of things. It was like my wanting to go to Portugal. this would be a fabulous idea. And so, you know, we sing and dance to the other one, and the other one pokes a hole in that balloon, you know, and says, that's not going to work for us.
But so his ideal situation was that he would have his own tiny house and you would have your own.
No, he would he would have a house for junk, and then he would live in mine where it would be tidy.
So
Her laugh reminds me, and I just got this right now. It reminds me of that laugh from Baby Reindeer. Martha's laugh. It reminds me of that that like, but it kind of comes at a time, to me what she said wasn't like all that funny to me, but I think she's rather amused with herself. But to me it just wasn't that funny. Mm.
the plan was to subdivide this property.
Yes.
You and Dan discussed, was it to, I wasn't quite clear on this. You weren't going to divide it into 3 lots like your neighbor, correct?
We didn't think we could. We thought we needed 2 lots to make it work.
Why did you conclude that you couldn't do that?
Well, we could have done that, but here's the thing. In order to bring the driveway all the way through, sitting right in the middle of that's a garage. So we have to tear this garage down, which isn't a great loss, except the house in front now no longer has a garage. So now we have to figure out what to do. But if we'd brought it all the way down and only divided it in half, we could have put a garage back here with the driveway that turned into it.
So ultimately that was the plan.
Ultimately, but it was one of many plans, I would say.
Okay. And you reached out to Richard Freimark to sort of start that process. And
no, I reached out not to start the process, but to consult with Richard, who I've always thought had great ideas. And Richard then told me how to start.
sure, I guess that's what I meant. I apologize.
To me, she's trying to control the narrative and the direction of where things are going.
To consult.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gave you some names of some people to contact.
He did.
And did they provide you some information on how to?
They did, but we never set up an appointment. We talked about it, and they said, when you get closer, you get the backyard cleaned up, give us a call, and now we'll look seriously at it.
And who did you talk to out of the people that he told you to call?
K and something engineering. I have it written down somewhere.
Okay.
But I called whoever he recommended, and he'd even given me a name of a guy.
You heard him testify and rattle off a few names of people that he told you to call.
Yeah.
When one of those people is one of the people you called.
Yes.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what kind of information did he give you?
That to clean up the property, and then we'd look at it.
Okay.
You know, there was nothing they could do with the condition it was in.
I wonder if if the prosecution was bringing up that she heard the names of these companies, that she's now adding that she contacted one of them because she heard his testimony. Like that's what I got from the question he asked.
At that point.
I could be wrong. Is that K&S Engineering? Is that right, or something like that?
Or was it K and N? It was K and somebody.
Okay.
You know.
I'm not going to hold you to it. I just it's just ringing in the top of my head. So, but K and something Engineering. Nonetheless, one of the names that he gave you. Okay. Is that Nick White? Does that sound familiar?
So she had a very closed posture. And I think she realizes that she needs to try to keep her posture open. And so I think now this is why she's doing this. I think she's wanting to kind of protect those vital organs. I don't think she likes the questions, but she's trying to me, it was very conscious of her to try to open back up. That's just what I think. Not a body language expert. We go to Dr. G Explains or one of the other body language experts for that part.
Or is it one of the other names?
It could have been. I don't know. I mean, at this point, I'm guessing.
Okay. Well, let's not do that. I'm just seeing if you remember. So, did you talk to anybody else out of that group of people that he had given you?
No, because once they said clean up the yard, that was where we focused our energy.
Okay. And when was that again?
It doesn't matter. All right, let's get to her the next day where they're going to continue cross-examination. Some interesting stuff comes up, and so let's take a look at this one. Closed captions on. There we go.
And we'll continue with Mr. Overstreet's cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Brophy, I want to start. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
I want to start just clarifying something from yesterday
Okay.
that I believe you testified to. You said when you got downtown later that morning of June 2nd,
So the morning of the day her husband died.
that you kind of figured what was going on based on how people were reacting around you. But it is true that nobody actually told you that it was Dan that had been killed until Detective Posey, correct?
Yes.
And that was during that interview.
Yes.
But you stated that Karen called you before you went into.
Like, I couldn't even speak. If this happened, like, the amount of deep breathing I would have to do before something like this. So I get excited just getting on Natalie's show, like, Dr. G, Natalie, and Emily D. Baker, go ahead and throw the lawyer and maybe Rob up there too. I would I would be fangirling so bad, and y'all would know. I was fangirling because I probably wouldn't sit in a chair where I can move around a lot. That would that would be awesome. I really respect all of them and the work that they do. I Wait a minute, it's the wrong one, Sarah. Yes, Spidey, and Spidey's cool with Rob. He's been on Law and Lumber before, and I think Rob was on his show too. Yeah. All right, we're gonna get back to this.
That interview,
Yes.
Dan's mother, Karen,
Yes.
and that you told her that it was Dan and that he was dead,
Yes.
based on the fact that you thought that Dan had been killed.
It was more than think.
But you hadn't been told.
I had not been told.
Ma'am, so why was it more than think? How did you know? How did you know? She's going to try to explain it. What she says doesn't make a whole lot of sense for why you would call someone's mother, your mother-in-law, and tell her that your son that her son wasn't like no. Um I you do not do that. You do not do that. No. Uh I will share my my partner was in a really difficult place, and it was a medical procedure, it was a medical thing, and we decided to try to not let his family see anything until he was in like a better place physically. And what I saw, like, because I thank goodness I was in therapy at the time. I took it to my therapist. He did not want his parents to see that. And as his wife, I would not want my in-laws to until I knew for sure, I would not say anything to them. And she's going to minimize like if she had been wrong, what she would do if she had been wrong, and it's not going to make sense. And I think that's likely what might have been it for the jury. The jury was probably like, "How do you call his mom and you don't know? How do you do that?"
But I had not heard from him. All of his friends avoided looking at me. And the police officers knew who I was before I got there. And one police officer hugged me. This is not good news I'm going to hear.
What if you were wrong?
Then I would have called Karen and said, "Happy days, I was wrong." And Karen and I would have celebrated and we would have laughed and we would have had family jokes about this for 20 years and it would have been much, much better than it turned out.
Doesn't make sense.
Stated you bought this ghost gun build kit and you realized you couldn't put it together.
No, I realized it was more intricate. I didn't realize that.
I think she didn't like him insinuating that she wasn't smart enough or clever enough that she couldn't put it together. I don't think she liked him insinuating that, but she's making herself look more guilty. Mm.
I couldn't put it together. It was more intricate than I had thought it would be,
And based on what?
based upon the fact that it was supposed to be few parts, and I thought it was a few too many parts.
What steps did you take to actually try to build it?
I didn't take any because I wasn't ready to write that story yet.
You decided to write that story months prior.
Yes?
Um,
For anyone that's newer to this case, what happened was she purchased a ghost gun at a gun show for I think about $400, and that's likely the weapon that was used in the incident, and she removed the device that the police could have used to determine that it had been fired, and she put it in a box and labeled it, and the prosecution is gonna ask her about that a little later. We love a good, like, dumb criminal. We just and I don't use the word dumb, but, like, that's not smart. That wasn't don't do crimes, but, like and don't label the evidence for the police. Like,
but you weren't ready to start writing it.
That's right.
So what was the need to buy the gun at that point?
purple folder.
I was celebrating. It was Christmas.
Not an envelope. Not an envelope.
Right. Right. But what was the need to buy the gun if you weren't writing the story yet?
Mr. Overstreet, we have had testimony upon testimony upon testimony about the fact Dan was a collector. Dan wasn't.
And I think the prosecution is letting this go because she is not answering his question. And I think they're letting it go.
A collector by himself. I had my little piles of stuff, you know. What I found, what I have found in life is if you see something you want it, you can afford it, buy it now, because circling back for it, it may or may not be there.
And so now you're a gun collector?
But that was her spending problem. Like, that was the problem with her spending. That statement was not an answer to his question, and it didn't help her.
No. Now I have a piece of writing information research.
How convenient.
Did you said you didn't take any steps to try to build this gun?
I did not.
And I want to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 25. First of all, do you recognize this?
Yes.
Recognize all the parts in here?
Well, you're further away than I would say, but certainly it looks like all the parts are there.
Is this what it looked like when you got it?
Yes.
Approximately.
Approximately.
Okay. And you saw this part in the kit.
I did.
Was there anything you needed to do to this to make it functional?
I hadn't gotten that deep into this gun. I'm not sure how to answer that question because the answer is I don't know.
Was there anything in the instructions or anything you saw online that made you think that you needed to manipulate this part?
And once again, I go back to I don't know because there are a slew of parts. You know, the only thing I can attribute it to is when you buy an IKEA thing, there are pieces that come fairly close together. And that isn't where you celebrate. You celebrate the little bags of all, you don't celebrate the little bag. Let me say this
I don't
sentence
know what
again
she's
so it
talking
makes
about.
sense. You're delighted to see pieces more or less together. All the little parts, you're less delighted to see.
And is this why you never even opened these little baggies?
I wasn't ready to start yet. And I didn't want them misplaced.
No attempts to try to build it. You didn't do any further research because you weren't ready to write this story.
That's right.
Thank you. Your defense attorney stated in opening that you knew, or that you thought that you knew, that Nathaniel had previously done a build kit.
Yes.
You knew that, or thought that at least.
I thought he had said that and I believed him.
When you have this story to do a gun build kit, and you actually purchased a gun build kit, you didn't ever talk to Nathaniel about his experience with a build kit.
No, and that wouldn't have been where I would have gone with that. Where I would have gone first would be to my father-in-law, Jack, who I knew had every equipment in the world and could help me drill out the parts that needed to be drilled out.
Okay, but you didn't do that either.
No, because I wasn't ready to start yet,
And how did you know you needed a drill press?
because it was on one of the videos.
One of the videos.
Uh-huh.
How many did you watch?
I don't know.
Why were you watching videos if you weren't writing the story yet?
I was watching videos to see how to put it together.
But I thought you weren't ready to put it together.
I'm not ready to put it together, but that doesn't mean I'm not researching what I have to do to get it ready to get.
This isn't making any sense. It's when you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory, and the pieces typically fit together in a way where it's like, I could see that. This isn't making any sense.
Put together.
Okay, so now you're doing research online.
We have stated previously, and I am not backing down from that, that I investigated. One of my friends has a sign over her desk that says only James Michener gets to use all his research. You
don't
research
need that part.
everything to maybe come up with 6 sentences in a book that will make the book more realistic. So
you-
yeah, I
you-
do tons of research.
You do a lot of research.
I do.
We could have had Dr. Lewis. We should have
So
had
I'm just
Dr.
having a hard
Lewis.
time having that make sense with what you said about planning and preparing.
Dan was a better planner than I was.
Hang on, let me ask you
Sorry.
a question.
I'm so sorry.
You said yesterday that you're not a planner. Did you say
But
that?
I did say that, but let me put a caveat on that.
Please?
I am not.
Wait a minute. That narrative doesn't fit what I'm trying to say now. Because I thought she was the front of the house and he was the back of the house. And I would think the person that is in the front that is keeping track of everything, I would think you would have to be kind of prepared and planned. You'd have I don't know, like this it just doesn't make any sense. But she's just desperately trying to hold on to this narrative. And I think she thinks because she's such a great writer, she's a great storyteller, she's trying to tell this cohesive story to the jury, and it's not helping at all. It's not helping at all.
I am not a planner in the initial stages the way Dan was, but I rarely go into anything willy-nilly, and I rarely do anything that I don't complete.
Like murder? Like and but like I don't know that that statement helped her. I don't think that helps her. I don't think it does.
States Exhibit 82 showed that you were doing some of your research,
Mhm.
maybe, on February 1st. You were searching for gun shops at that time.
I'm not sure what state exhibit 82 is.
Okay, it was
But like instead of saying I didn't do that research, I'm not sure which state exhibit that is. I'm going to speed up her testimony just a little bit, just a little bit.
your some of your internet history.
Okay.
It was showed to you yesterday by your counsel and asked to you by your counsel about February 1st, and you're searching for gun shops in Portland. What were you searching for?
That was different. I wasn't researching that. When I'm looking for gun shops in Portland, it was not for gun pieces. At this point, it's on a whole different conversation.
I'm going to slow her down a little bit. Y'all, she's trying to explain it away and it's not going to help. Nancy, this
That's
isn't
writing, and that's a little cubicle in and of itself in my life. What Dan and I were talking about was, did we need to own a gun at this point? And while we had both been adamant anti-gun people for a long time, the last 3 or 4 years had changed how we felt about that, and we were discussing it and had been discussing it for well over a year.
So, as what was described yesterday as a left-leaning individual,
Yes.
your response to gun violence in the country was to buy a gun.
In 2017, one of the memes of the left was, if we continue to be anti-guns, does that mean that everybody in the country who will own a gun but the people on the left? And it was a serious concern. Lots and lots and lots of people were changing their ideas about gun ownership because
This is the first time I've ever had a meme brought up by the defendant. I saw a meme, and the meme encouraged me to do it. Like, who doesn't see that meme and go out and arm themselves?
The country had become so diversified.
Well, Ms. Brophy, I appreciate a meme as well and what other people's opinions might be, but I'm asking your position as somebody who was so anti-gun, in fact, that your law enforcement husband wasn't allowed to have a gun in the house.
No,
Hang on.
sorry.
So anti-gun, but your response to gun violence increasing in this country was to buy a gun yourself. Yes or no?
Yes, with a caveat.
Go ahead and let her have it. Let her dig that hole.
At what point from the time you received this ghost gun to June 2nd did you decide that you were not going to use it?
That we're speaking now of the gun that we bought at the gun show.
No.
Oh, all right. Ask me the question again, please.
This ghost gun that I just showed
Right.
you. What point did you decide you were not going to use it?
I never decided I was not going to use it.
Is that why you kept it?
I kept it because eventually I was going to put it together and write this story.
And you decided the way to keep it would be to put it in a box with scarves and purses and store it in storage.
No. What I decided was to store it away until I reached the point that I would do it. But I was trying to get moved at that point. Certainly there was, I didn't see another big option there. And I even marked the box because at any point I expected the police to come back to me and say things like, does Dan have a computer? Do you all have a computer? Can we look at any of this? Do you all have anything else? So I marked it so I could find it again. That was for the police benefit. That wasn't for mine.
Oh.
I marked the box.
I can't. Okay, I told y'all. My sense of humor is dark. Okay, I have a real dark sense of humor. I marked it for the police, ma'am. Ma'am, you could have just pled guilty and maybe gotten a plea deal. I marked it for the police? What do you mean? Who does that? Who evidence? I can't. I have to go back. I have to go back. She, and I'm sure the prosecutor is like, what? You did what?
It was to store it away until I reached the point that I would do it. But I was trying to get moved at that point. Certainly there was, I didn't see another big option there. And I even marked the box because at any point I expected the police to come back to me and say things like, does Dan have a computer? Do you all have a computer? Can we look at any of this? Do you all have anything else? So I marked it so I could find it again. That was for the police benefit. That wasn't for mine.
Oh.
I marked the box that I packed that it had a gun kit in it because I thought sooner or later the police are going to come back to me. And the police never once talked to me after that.
Did you literally just say that was for the police's benefit?
That was literally what I said. I marked the box for the police's benefit so that I could find it again when the police came back.
For
And
what?
Well, I sort of thought that if the police didn't find something, they would want to come back and re-interview and I would be able to show them things. I thought the fact that all they
It's not helping. It's not like that was likely the murder weapon. What? What? The prosecutor, did you literally just say you marked it for the police? Like, this, what? What universe and what? Is that what you just said?
had was Dan's phone and not a computer premise. they may have reached a dead end and said, Mrs. Brophy, is there anything you can give us that would help? Any electronic equipment, anything else? So I was kind of in my mind making a list. At that point, silly me, since I believed I didn't kill my husband, I didn't think I was
So I would say because I didn't kill my husband, I because I believe I didn't kill my husband, because don't I believe, I'm gonna rewind. I'm gonna rewind that back for y'all. Since I believed I didn't kill my husband, I didn't think it was. What? That's not how you would say that if you didn't do it, Nancy. That's not how you say those things. I'm sure her lawyer is probably just like, "Oh, like, just okay. That just happened. That just happened."
not a computer premise, might not they may have reached a dead end and said, Mrs. Brophy, is there anything you can give us that would help? Any electronic equipment, anything else? So I was kind of in my mind making a list. At that point, silly me, since I believed I didn't kill my husband, I didn't think I was a serious suspect.
Despite you telling people that you were.
I told people I was a suspect because it's always the wife.
All right. So you lost me there for a minute. Let's circle back. You said something about computers.
Right?
I didn't ask anything about computers. I'm asking about a gun.
You're asking why I was marking things for the police.
I did not ask you that.
Okay.
I think maybe that's where I got a little lost.
Okay.
You
I did not ask you that. I did not. No, no. I wouldn't have thought to ask you because I would have never thought you marked it for the police. Like, that thought would have never crossed my mind. What do you mean? You marked it for the police? Like this, I saw that. It was this and the letter she wrote detailing if somebody ever was going to do what she's convicted of, these are like the motivations, these are her tips for how to get away with it, I guess. I don't know. Like she after that murder she wrote blog and this, I was like, "Oh no. We have to talk about it." And I because I think she thinks she's just so smart. She has no insight and no self-awareness to realize she is digging herself into a deeper and deeper hole. This is not helping. This is these are things a guilty person wouldn't even say these things. Like this is self-snitching. And that's why somebody mentioned the self-snitching thing earlier. Like this is just ma'am, he I did not horribly like who does this? Just like labels it murder weapon. What? Who does that? No, but I think she didn't want to forget where she left the ghost gun, maybe. Like maybe that's what she did. Don't don't do crimes. Don't do crimes. But like, oh Nancy. Nancy. Like, and then I believed I didn't. I believed I didn't. I still can't get over that one. All right. She's just gonna. It's. Let's see if it can get worse. Let's see.
said that you marked that box for the police benefit.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you thought that was important to the police, that they might want this gun kit.
I had a hard time believing that I would be interviewed by the police for 45 minutes. We would have a brief conversation on the telephone, and I would never hear from them again till the case was solved. I thought
Until the case was solved? Until the case was solved? Um, ma'am, ma'am. Uh, what? I'm just gonna let her keep digging. So she thinks she's so smart. Like she really is not seeing how bad this is for her. I don't think she's seeing just how bad this is.
Thought for sure the police would come back and say, is there anything else you've got that could help us? And that would have included the gun kit.
Let's
you
make
know.
this easier. What is the relevance of this gun kit to the police?
None, but we had it. I figured they'd ask for it sooner or later.
Why would the police ask you for a gun kit that they don't know that you own? I'm failing to understand what your rationale was for making this available to the police. You think it's so important to them that at some point they're going to come asking for it, but you don't call them.
I figured the police were doing the police job the way the police did it, that they probably did not need. I will be the first to tell you, I got my detective's license on TV. And I can guarantee you I had ideas.
So once again, I have a dark, dark sense of humor, okay? And we laughed because this is sad. This is a real person's life, and like she really believes these things. And but once again, she is not seeing how bad this is for her. She's it's not even crossing her mind. To me, she's downplaying the police and talking about how horrible of a job and an investigation they did until they solved it. But but that was arresting you, Nancy. I this is whew.
Ideas on how this case should have gone. But I sort of figured the police had more experience and they were the ones in charge.
So you think you have relevant evidence to a murder investigation, and you don't think you should mention it to the police?
How does a gun kit, even though I marked it, how is a gun kit relative evidence?
I'm asking you.
I'm asking you because I don't think it is, because it's never been put together.
Then why would you mark it for the police?
Because I figured the police would come back and want to know.
What else did you think was relevant to the police investigation that you marked and did not share with them?
Anything else you want to confess to?
I thought they would eventually want to know about the computers. I thought they would eventually want to go through the computers and see what they could find, if anything, that would help them.
And did you give them a computer that belonged to Dan?
No, we had a computer. They never asked for it. But in my mind, I knew they would eventually, if they didn't solve the case by somebody coming in and confessing, they would eventually come back and say, can we see your computer? My computers weren't packed because I thought they were relevant to the police if the police wanted to go in that direction.
Sure.
Well, that's not exactly true, right? I mean, you had a computer in storage.
No, I had a computer in a box in one room and a computer by the bed in another room. That's not in storage.
Right, one in a box in your room. What about the one that was in the storage unit?
There was not.
She likes correcting him. So I guess the other computer wasn't in storage. It seems like she might have broken this computer, and this might have been the computer that she did a lot of the research on, because it sounds like she's going to describe that the screen was broken and that's why she had to get a new computer. But they were able to, of course, because even though the screen's broken, excuse me, as long as the hard drive and like they can do recovery on damaged computers, and they were able to get the information. It's my understanding they were able to get the information off of that computer.
Computer in the
So there
storage
wasn't a laptop in the storage unit?
There was not.
Nancy.
What your guys' testimony was, they found the computer in a bedroom and they found the computer in a box in the other.
Ma'am, you don't need to restate the testimony that you've been paying attention to. You don't have to restate that, because you're up here to testify to your portion. You don't have to go over the previous testimony.
In what had been the office.
Mm-hmm. And you would agree then that the stuff that was found on the computer that has been shown here in court was on the computer that was packed away in a box?
I think that's how they did it, but it were the two computers.
Why did you get a new computer in March of 2018?
when you open the computer, the old computer, you can't read the screen because it's
broken.
become lines across it.
It's
So you did
broken.
all your research of all these guns on one computer, then packed that away and put it in a box in the closet, and then you got a new computer. Is that right?
I get a new computer every year. I take a computer with me when I go out to the fields. I beat a computer up. I buy a fairly inexpensive computer because I know I'm replacing it the next year.
And you thought the police would want that, but you didn't give it to them.
The police never contacted me again. I assumed that they were doing their job and didn't want my interference.
So you told your friends in this car ride, that was in February, right?
To one of them, yes.
The one where you're telling Darla Lukenbaugh about the fact that you bought this gun kit.
Yes.
And at that point, you had already bought States Exhibit 26, the full gun from the gun show, correct?
If I hadn't bought it, I was close to buying it. I'm not sure the exact date of the car ride in February.
In fact, you had not only bought this gun during that car ride, but you were actively bidding on the slide and barrel. Isn't that right?
Yes, probably. If it was after the 15th of February that we did this.
And we'll get to the slide and barrel in a minute, but your testimony and what your defense has asserted in their opening statements was that you bought that slide and barrel for writing.
That's true.
But you didn't tell your friends about the slide and barrel.
I was more on the story than I was on the gun kit.
Right.
The story. I want to explain the Dunning-Kruger effect that Sarah, I think it was, oh no, I think it might have been Allahu, sorry. But yes, for you. Yes, I pulled it up and I can share which screen. Here we go. So that effect is somebody has high conviction, low knowledge. High conviction. She believes what she is telling is what she is saying. She fully believes everything she's saying and that she should be believed. She has no knowledge. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. She is confidently saying these things that are very problematic and are helping the prosecution in ways they didn't even probably think she could. I wouldn't have asked the person, did you label the box for the police? Like I would have never crossed my mind. But once again, I think because she's a writer, I think she doesn't like blank places or blank holes. And I think she quickly came up with a narrative like, oh yeah, I did that for the police just in case they came back for more evidence. But ma'am, you're the one on trial for your husband's murder? Like that would mean and the prosecution is saying that that's the murder weapon and you put it in a box for the police, like she is not getting that she shouldn't say these things at all, which is makes it easy for the jury. I don't know how long they deliberated, but she was convicted.
You would agree that you never told law enforcement that you owned this ghost gun kit.
No, because this ghost gun kit, despite the fact you refer to it as a weapon on a regular basis, is not a weapon unless I hit somebody over the head with the case. There's nothing about that gun kit that's a gun, except that if you spend a few hours and put it together, it could be a gun. But I've got eggs and flour in my pantry, and that's not an omelet either until you put it together.
And you would agree that you also never told the police about the slide and barrel that you purchased on eBay.
Mr. Overstreet, when I talked to the police in June, they asked me specific questions. My husband had just died. The fact that I was coherent at all is a miracle. The fact that they never came back to me after that for a follow-up interview, I thought was shocking. You know, I thought this was on the police. This wasn't on me. The police said, we're handling this. You just go home and rest. You know, you go home and take it one day at a time.
So I appreciate when experts admit that something is outside of their scope. So for me, my personal opinion is that Dr. Lewis could have come off this way, where she overestimated her intelligence and expertise and the particular case, because it almost seemed like when the prosecution was asking her questions, she seemed annoyed with their questions. That before my before a recent video, her testimony was one of my highest viewed videos on my channel. That was back with the Letitia Stout um, testimony. I thought the defense experts for Chad Daybell's case, because the forensic pathologist, she said what she knew and she admitted what she didn't know. And to me, that helps a person come across more credible. If you come off like I know everything and there's no way I could be wrong, that's where you don't come off credible. Those are my thoughts on that one.
You know, and they never contacted me again, except for the things that they asked me for, which was Dan's schedule. I got that to them, and I was having trouble with their email, but I did what I was asked to do.
Are you declining to answer my question?
Perhaps not. What was your question?
That was a lengthy answer for not remembering my question.
Well, I go off on tangents.
She does.
So I asked you, is it true that you did not tell the police about the slide and barrel?
It is true. I did not tell the police about the sliding barrel.
The slide and barrel that would fit perfectly on the gun show gun that you purchased.
The sliding barrel that I was using for research for my writing, I did not tell them about that.
You can answer that question.
I did. I said I did not tell them.
Would you agree that it fit on the gun that you bought?
Do chefs do that? Because I normally just use eggs, meat, vegetables. I've never put flour in an omelet before. I've never done that. I thought it was me, so I'm in no way a chef. Most of my meals can be cooked in the microwave or in the air fryer or on broil. I like the broil features fast. You can cook a good grilled cheese on broil. So I thought it was me. I guess it's not. That's weird.
From the gun
It
show?
was the same thing. It could have been interchanged. Yes.
So although you owned, well, we'll get to that in just a second. When exactly did you put the ghost gun in storage?
Somewhere between June 2nd and September 5th when I was arrested. I have no idea.
How big was your?
Wait a minute. Was June 2nd the day of the incident? Was June 2nd? Why would you? Oh, May 22nd. She was found guilty. So May 25th. Yeah, he was unalived on June 2nd. That was not a good answer. She put it in storage sometime between June 2nd and when she was arrested? He was shot on June 2nd. Why would you say this? As a defense attorney, I wouldn't even think I had to tell a person, do not say that you labeled something for the police. Do not say that you had possession of what they believe is the murder weapon during the time of the murder. Do not say that you got rid of it on the day of or sometime after the murder. There are certain things that you don't think you might have to say, but she's telling the truth probably for that. I don't know. It's very strange.
Your property?
We had half an acre.
Half an acre.
I know, Letitia.
You're sure of that?
I'm positive of that.
Got some conflicting testimonies, you might remember.
Yes, yes, but it was testimony from a woman who lived in an apartment who thought any amount of lawn was going to be huge.
So you had a half an acre,
Yes.
and it's true that lot behind your house was not 5 acres, right? It was actually just about an acre.
It could have been slightly larger. I think I've seen the plot and it was something like 1.3, but that's been a long time ago and I could be wrong.
Talk about the interview with the police and how that was you just found out your husband died, and
like talk to a
very
lawyer
hard
first.
to remember everything that you talked about in there.
Mhm.
But you do recall that you didn't
Talk
have
to a
any
lawyer
trouble
first.
telling them
Get
about
a
the
deal if
firearm
you
that
can.
purchased at the
Don't
gun
do
show, correct?
crimes.
In fact, you told
Don't do
them the whole
crimes.
story about why and how you purchased the gun.
Detective Merrill said, does Dan have any guns? Dan owned half a Glock. I told him about the full Glock. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic here, although I thought listening to that sentence, it came out snotty, which wasn't really the way I wanted it to come out.
It came
But
out
what I will
snotty.
tell you is he asked me, I answered him the best way I knew how.
Why didn't you just say, yes, we have a
Why
gun?
didn't you?
I was trying to be helpful to the police at this point so they would know what was going on. At this point,
So they wouldn't suspect you? Is that why you were being helpful? But not over you could have been really helpful. You could have turned over what you labeled for them. Oh.
I thought they were going to find my husband's killer. I didn't think they were going to say, let's look at the one person who didn't kill him.
But instead of just answering, yes, we have a gun and it's at home, you actually made sure to give them a full story as to how and why you purchased that gun.
Mr. Overstreet, you are having trouble keeping me quiet now because I tell stories as I'm talking to you. Do you think I was less than that with the police when I'm upset? This is how I talk. I tell full stories to illustrate what I'm saying.
Even though you were just informed of your husband's murder.
Well, apparently it didn't make me quieter. It just made me more upset.
And you paid cash for that gun?
Yes, we did.
Your attorney made a
So the "we" that she's trying to say that her and her husband purchased the gun together. The state does not believe that at all.
uh, a big deal out of you purchasing things with your debit card or credit card.
Right?
Why would you pay cash at the gun show?
Well, actually, that was Stan's idea. And when we talked about it and what have you, he said, here's 400 in cash. You get cash from your thing. So I went on Dan's idea on that.
Didn't you actually withdraw the $400?
I withdrew the $400, but he gave me 400 in addition, and he gave me cash.
Okay, I don't know that I quite understand that. Didn't you
doesn't make
withdraw
sense.
$400 from your On Point account?
After he had given me the first 400
How did he give you 400?
in cash.
Where did that come from?
So did it cost $800? I don't know why she's trying to say he gave her 400 too. I don't understand. And I think the prosecution doesn't understand either.
Dan has cash at the house. Dan operates a cash business. He sells eggs. He sells crap on the cart. He sells, he operates with a lot of cash.
Okay, so he gave you, and we'll talk about that too. So he gives you $400.
Mm-hmm.
You then go to On Point and
Mhm.
withdraw $400.
Mm-hmm.
So you have $800 cash.
I do.
What did you do with the remaining 300?
Well, it wasn't a remaining 300. As they were taking the gun apart to show me how it worked, they sold me, but I didn't have a receipt on this. They sold me some oil that they thought I was going to need, and in addition, I had bought a book on Glocks in general. So, what did I do with the probably 200 plus, but not much plus? I don't know. Maybe I gave part back to Dan. That was a long time ago. It wasn't that essential to me. I have no memory of what I did with it.
You didn't put it back in your bank account.
Maybe Dan and I went out to dinner. Who knows? But I could have just as easily given it back to Dan.
Okay.
I don't know anything either. You're asking the wrong one. I don't
Told
know.
detectives, and I believe you testified to this as well, that you got home with that gun
Mm-hmm.
and looked at it,
Mm-hmm.
thought it was heavy, ugly, some other maybe descriptive terms you used. I'm not quite sure right now. But you realized you didn't want it. You and Dan both realized you didn't want it.
I think we were both ambivalent about it still. This didn't really solve the problem, but I think we
What
went
problem?
back and forth for months before we bought it and for weeks after we bought it.
Okay.
What didn't solve what problem? What problem? It didn't solve the problem? She throws words in there where they're not needed. If she would answer the questions he's asking more concise, she wouldn't be digging herself a deeper hole, in my opinion, if I have to say that.
So you didn't decide you didn't want it that day.
That's right.
Got it home. You took it. Did you handle it?
Oh, sure. We both did.
What did you do to handle it?
Well, we pulled it out and we looked at it. And I mean, how would I have known it was heavy if I hadn't held it? You know, and somebody testified earlier that there were two little dark hairs that were in the slide. In our house, who had two little short dark hairs was not me. That would have been Dan. He handled it.
Did you see him handle it?
Yeah, I was right there.
And what did he do with it?
He looked at it, he picked it up, he messed with it, he pointed it toward the backyard. So, even though it had no bullets in it. And, I don't recall we had a great conversation about it, but he definitely handled it.
Did you ever remove the slide and barrel?
Oh, sure, I played with it.
Oh, you did remove the slide and barrel.
Sure.
Oh,
I didn't think that was a secret.
well, you didn't tell the.
So, but that's the part that it's my understanding. So I know nothing about weapons. Like I know nothing about them, but it's my understanding that the part that was removed was the part that would indicate whether or not it had been fired.
Police that.
The police didn't ask me whether I'd removed the sliding barrel.
You told the police that you got it home and that you realized how
She
much
probably
you
spent
didn't
it.
want it and you put it away and never touched it again. Do you remember that?
I could have said that, but I was upset at the time, so
You
that was
lied?
probably an exaggeration. I handled the gun. You know, I may not have loved it, but I was still curious about it. And keep in mind, I'm writing a story about a gun, and I need to research guns so I can have it. But yes, I didn't, I touched the gun.
Yeah. And so your testimony today, after hearing all the testimony and seeing all the evidence on the screen, your testimony today is that you have removed that slide and barrel.
I have.
So you know how to do it.
Yeah.
It's not that hard, right?
Oh, it's terribly hard. I broke 2 nails doing it. Don't believe them when they say it's not that hard. You can't just whip it off the way they do it. You have to hold the gun a certain way.
So she is too on it, but like not on like this, because that's probably true. That part right there, maybe she did break a nail. Like it probably was hard to take it off. She can't help herself to give all of these random details that are not needed. And I'm sure her lawyers said keep it concise. Be very sure of the question, just answer what you're asked. Don't go off, don't try to explain yourself, don't try to make sure that everybody understands, like just answer the question. If there's anything that we need to clear up on rebuttal or whatever, when the defense gets to ask her any other questions, like that we can clear anything up when it's our turn again. I'm sure her defense told her something like that. She's making it worse.
You have to pull it back. I broke 2 nails pulling it back, and I thought this isn't any fun. And you would be shocked at how hard it is to do. Yeah, if you've handled guns all your life, I'm sure it's a piece of cake. But I can tell you, for me, it was not.
So you remove the slide and barrel.
Yes.
You can see that it's nearly identical to the ghost gun slide and barrel, correct?
I'd have to look at both of them now, but I would say yes.
Let's do that.
Oh, yeah, we can look at. Okay.
Let's take a look. We're about to pan out. We'll see. They're probably looking down. The good thing is they have masks on, so you can't see any reactions or anything.
Agreed.
Only good thing about a mask.
Look nearly identical.
I would agree that they look identical, but they obviously are not. One of them is quite a bit longer than the other one.
Quite a bit longer.
They look almost exactly the same.
Which makes them not identical.
They look almost.
When you're circling the little things on which find 5 things in this picture that aren't identical, you would circle that.
Right. This one is slightly shorter.
Just a
Yes.
little bit.
Glock 19 ghost gun.
Just a
What
little bit.
else is not identical about this gun?
Well,
Slide and barrel.
one of them obviously has a zip tie on it, but they are similar, is what I would say, but they are not identical.
Can you see the back?
Yes? I agree they're similar.
Can you see the top?
I agree they're similar.
I'm not going to point this at you, but can you see the barrel?
I can.
Okay. Anything about this side that is not exactly the same?
Hopefully, I'm going to fast forward a little just in case for
You it didn't
YouTube.
fit, and then you bought a slide and barrel that would fit the gun show gun, right?
No, I bought a slide and barrel that was the same one. I could have easily bought one that fit the ghost gun, but I did not. I bought this one.
Why would you buy another slide and barrel to fit the ghost gun when you couldn't build it? You already own it. You own this piece right here. You own this.
Yes.
So why would you buy another one?
To replace
You know,
it?
if a trigger had been available, I would have bought a trigger. I'm telling you, I was fascinated with gun pieces at that point because I was writing a story on gun pieces and making it into a gun.
There's a trigger in this kit.
Yes, and I would have bought another one if I'd had it. I figured if I could construct them together the way the character would have, it would have worked fine.
But Miss Brophy, you didn't buy other gun pieces. You bought a slide and barrel that would fit this gun.
That's true.
No other pieces did you buy.
No, but I wasn't finished shopping either.
That came across aggressive, a little aggressive.
You were worried. Your counsel said this.
And I don't know if she was proud of herself in that moment, but like what she just said was not helpful at all.
I don't know if you believe it or agree with it, but I'm going to ask you. You needed to buy that slide and barrel because you were worried about taking this gun apart?
Yes.
Okay. But you just testified that you took the slide and barrel off of it.
That's not taking the gun apart. We're talking about if we took the slide and barrel itself completely apart, could I put it back together and have a gun that wouldn't backfire on me and kill me? And so the fact that when I said to Dan, I can take this gun, the real gun, not the kit plated gun, apart, and it'll help me do this. Dan said, no. I've seen you in action. That's a mistake. Let's
What?
keep it together. We may get to sell it.
What?
I'm not talking about taking the entire gun apart.
Okay.
I'm talking about the slide and barrel.
Yes.
The critical piece of information, as you know now, if you didn't know before this trial,
Yeah.
you know now the slide and barrel is at issue,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You keep talking about the gun and taking it apart and all that. Talking about the slide and barrel.
Mm-hmm.
You have a gun complete,
Mm-hmm.
slide and barrel intact. You know how to remove it. In fact, you did.
Mm-hmm.
You can manipulate the slide and barrel separate and apart from the rest of the gun,
Mm-hmm.
but you chose to buy the exact same piece. Is that right?
Yes, but I have a caveat on that too.
Of
Okay.
course. Go ahead.
Sure.
The caveat I have on that was I wasn't thinking, hey, this would work that way. I was thinking because for me, the gun was the gun, the toy was the toy, the pieces were the toy.
What?
I'm not talking about the ghost gun, Miss Brophy.
We're talking about the difference between the slide and the barrel.
I'm not talking about the ghost gun.
Okay.
I thought when you said caveat that you're going to explain to us why in the world, when you already own this exact piece, you would need to buy another one days later,
To replace it.
within
For-
days.
Replace the one she got rid of.
What I can tell you is it was for writing. It was not to, as you would have it, murder my husband.
Why isn't this for writing? What's the difference?
Are you tapping the ghost gun or are you tapping the full gun? That isn't for writing because that isn't the story.
Your Honor, at this point, if counsel's going to be aggressive, I would ask that he not have a gun.
Okay, hold on a sec.
I didn't think he was aggressive. I thought he was just frustrated. She's not being very cooperative. He's asking very clear questions. She's giving roundabout answers. And she probably likes that her attorney stood up for her.
I'm gonna allow him to hold the gun.
Explain to me what the difference is between this piece right here that I'm pointing to, the slide barrel that you removed yourself,
Mhm.
and the one that you bought on eBay.
I thought we just went through that.
You're telling me you couldn't use this for writing?
No, that was the end piece. That was for protection. The other was for research.
I think the prosecution's collecting.
So at this point, you spent over $1,000 in guns and gun parts.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Mhm.
By the time you buy the eBay slide and barrel, you're upwards around $1,500.
Oh, wow.
About.
About.
She's very exact.
Your
Very exact.
attorney seemed to indicate that you happened upon the eBay slide and barrel.
Yes.
Just a pop-up ad.
No, it wasn't a pop-up ad.
You search
That's what
for
she
it?
said.
What happened?
Well, if that's what she said, then I probably said that to her at one point or another, but it wasn't something that,
Ma'am, 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 because the prosecution is trying to say you searched for it and you were intentionally trying to replace that portion to get away with a crime. That is what the prosecution is doing. I don't think she watched LawTube. She got her detective license by watching TV. She did not watch LawTube at all. Like, this was 2022. Yeah, LawTube was going. I don't know. I don't know. But the actual thing happened in 2018. So, oh my, this is bad. This is really bad. And she does not realize how bad this is, because she's about to explain that she told her lawyer one thing, but she's about to tell him something different. But believe me, what I'm telling you, forget what I told my lawyer.
uh, the slide and barrel was say that? Sorry. Uh, I didn't happen upon it.
Okay.
At the point that I decided I wanted to do this, I tend to be impulsive and I bought it because I wanted it.
At the point where you decided you wanted to do what? Because the thing that we're here talking about is the murder of your husband. So the point when you decided you wanted to do what? Because I think she's trying to say, but it's not working. The point I decided I wanted to write the story, but that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. The other thing makes more sense.
Where is it?
I have no idea.
Oh,
If you'd asked me on the day of my arrest, I would have told you that it was either in the house or it was either in storage. I haven't seen it for months and months and months and months.
since the crime?
So
Since when?
And you just bought it in February and got it at the very last day of February, right? February 28th?
could be. I don't know. I mean, I'm not looking at my notes.
You didn't lose this gun.
No,
You didn't lose the gun kit.
the gun kit went to the police. The gun went to the police. I didn't have to worry about packing that.
Miss Brophy, I'm talking about the time leading up to the murder.
Oh, all right. No, I knew where it was.
Okay.
You knew where the ghost gun was.
It was on the floor of my closet.
You knew where that gun was.
Yes. And I would tell you that the slide was on the floor of my closet next to the ghost gun.
Sitting on the floor.
Before the crime.
Just like literally sitting on the floor.
Well, it wasn't in the middle. It was it was tucked behind, next to, rather than behind, next to an armoire I had in the closet.
Okay. When's the last time you saw it?
That's what I was saying. I can't remember. I have no idea when the last time I saw it was. I know that I messed with it in February. I know I messed with it in March, but I can't remember seeing it after that.
What about in June?
Why didn't you make an attempt to locate it and mark it for the police like you did the ghost gun?
I
don't
stumbled
believe so.
across the ghost
don't
gun
believe
when
so.
I was packing. That's why I marked the box.
None
In
of
my
her home.
mind, I had a list of things I thought the police might come back and ask me for, and I thought the ghost gun would be among them.
The murder weapon.
Do you see the irony in
She doesn't see it.
not being able to locate that and that being the allegation that that was the murder weapon?
You
Do-
know, I see nothing ironic about this case at all. I see nothing happy about this case at all.
I'm going to go back, but he asked her a very specific question. Do you see how ironic it is that the very weapon that we believe was the murder weapon is the one that you put off in storage and hid away, but labeled for the police just in case they wanted to research the crime? Do you see the irony in this? And she's going to bring up that there's nothing ironic or happy, because I wonder if she got some feedback. She was very jovial and she seemed happy. And I wonder if her lawyers asked her to not come off that way. Because this is the first testimony we started with was the previous day, was day 21. This cross examination is day 22. I'm gonna go back a little bit. Do you see the irony of this? Okay. There we go.
Why didn't you make an attempt to locate it and mark it for the police like you did the ghost gun?
I stumbled across the ghost gun when I was packing. That's why I marked the box. In my mind, I had a list of things I thought the police might come back and ask me for, and I thought the ghost gun would be among them.
Do you see the irony in not being able to locate that, and that being the allegation that that was the murder weapon?
You know, I see nothing ironic about this case at all. I see nothing happy about this case at all.
That wasn't the question. That wasn't the question.
You're aware that the police searched your storage unit,
I am?
your pods,
Yes?
your house.
Yes?
You're aware that they even opened up your appliances inside your house to search for.
I was
Yeah.
not aware of that.
Okay. You would agree that you previously written about hiding weapons inside appliances, correct?
Oh, cool.
One of your books.
Not cool, but
Maybe, but I don't remember that.
Okay. Are you aware that they even opened up a wall to search for a gun?
Yes, they did it.
so it's not that she's allergic to listening. I think she very much heard the question. I don't think she wanted to answer it. It's like when Ali looked and said, "Judge, what happened?" Like they're asking me, they're trying to get a specific answer. Like they're asking me a question that has a specific answer, and I I don't want to give that answer. And so it was and the prosecution let her not answer it. He could have said, "Judge, non-responsive, please direct the witness to answer this question." Definitely selective answering syndrome. We talked about cross-examina, cross-examina. I saw that. I think I was in somebody's chat. Might have been Hidden True Crime covering the Chad Daybell case. Like a person has perfect memory for the defense lawyer, but then when the prosecution starts asking them questions, they get cross examnesia. I think that's what they called it. We're gonna keep going.
After the house went into 8 months after they had gotten the search warrant, they went back with a new search warrant just before it closed.
Okay.
So they did all that searching,
Mm-hmm.
got the ghost gun,
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find the slide and barrel from eBay.
No.
Mm-hmm.
But you stored a lot of stuff in your niece's basement, didn't you?
I
Oh.
did. But the stuff I stored in my niece's basement happened after the police were finished with the house. That was everything that was at the end. So the police had either looked at it or they hadn't.
I don't know that I believe you.
You didn't store anything anywhere else before your arrest?
No,
I don't
And you're
believe
sure that nothing went to your niece's house?
I'm positive nothing went to my niece's house until after. What?
you. She's remembering something and maybe thinking about whether they could call the niece for rebuttal.
Wait, let me back up just a minute because there's a fact here. Susan had left some clothes. For a while, they had been at Sarah's house before Dan died. And I'm going to say maybe as long as a year before Dan died, I went and got all the boxes that Susan had left and put them in our storage building so that when Susan came, I was able to give those to her sister and she took them home. So I have had things stored at Sarah's house in the past.
You know, like you just said, that the police were very interested in the slide and barrel from eBay, right?
I know that from the testimony and from the hearings we've had.
You have the discovery.
I have the discovery.
Your Honor, I have a matter for the court.
All right, let's have the jury step out for just 1 minute.
Your Honor, I do not like where this is going. Let's have a sidebar. I'm gonna fast forward through that. Let's
sliding
see.
barrel to the police. And I
Oh.
would make a Fifth Amendment argument.
Hold on, wait a minute,
But
wait a minute.
I
I'm
am
going back.
worried that we are headed in a direction where counsel is going to ask my client about what kind of evidence the police wanted and why after her arrest he didn't produce a sliding barrel to the police.
Yes.
And I would make a Fifth Amendment argument against that. If we're going to go down that road about whether she didn't voluntarily produce evidence,
She
after her
opened the
arrest, I
door
have
to that question
serious
though.
concerns about that and would make an objection.
And
I
just
don't
so I
wanna do it in
understand
front
the
of the
objection,
jury.
what type of evidence? We've heard testimony that she doesn't know what happened to the sliding barrel.
I think the direction counsel went is you knew that the sliding barrel was important to the police.
Yes.
You knew that from reading the discovery. And I
Yes.
anticipate the next question is, even after reading in the discovery that the police were very concerned about finding the sliding barrel, you did not produce it.
Facts. Facts.
Now, I know that she's already answered the question in the fact that she said, I have no idea where that our sliding barrel is, but at this point, if we're going to pursue a line of questioning about what evidence she must produce or the jury should think she must produce post-arrest, I think is wrong. And I think it violates her rights not to even have a jury make.
But when she gets up on that stand, she can be asked difficult questions. To me, her answers took us to this place. We'll see. I'm not a lawyer, y'all. Not a lawyer, okay? But okay.
An adverse inference regarding the production of evidence.
Let me ask, what was the question? What was the line of questioning going to be?
I'm going to ask her about why she didn't. Well, I don't want to disclose the question, Your Honor. Before.
Okay, all right.
It's not that. I can tell you that.
Here's where I'm at. So she is testifying. She's not remaining silent.
Thank you.
And she's already answered the question about what became of the sliding barrel. I'm not totally sure where the state is going with this line of questioning. So at this point, I'm overruling the objection, but Ms. Maxwell, depending on what the state asks, feel free to raise it again. But at this point, I think it's fair game to ask about what she knew. And I don't know if she knew or didn't know what the state's about to ask, because I'm not quite sure what the state's going to ask.
And I will say, Your Honor, I'm not asking why she didn't give it to the police. She's already said she didn't know where it was. I already have that answer.
Are you asking questions about her refusing to produce other evidence? Or, I mean, can you give me a general idea? I know you don't want her to hear the question in advance, but I'm just trying to get an idea of the theme.
It is not her refusal to produce evidence.
Perfect.
It's not my line.
All right. Let's bring the jury back in.
Gotta fast forward. Took a second.
Please be seated. I overruled the objections. So, Mr. Overstreet, you can ask the next question.
Ms. Brophy, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But I believe your answer was that you did have the discovery, you reviewed it.
Yes.
Okay. And you did realize that this slide barrel that was outstanding was a central issue in this case.
Yes. Just say yes.
Yes, probably.
Just yes.
8 months after my arrest, I realized that.
Okay.
Just
You understand
yes.
that today.
Yes.
Now you've testified. Well, we've heard different things from your interview with the police and what you've said on the stand, that you sort of hated guns, you didn't like them, but then you became interested in them for writing, then for safety, and then you seemed to have taken quite an interest after that in guns. Is that safe to say?
I would say the irony is that we bought a gun to protect us, and it didn't protect us.
I'm just asking.
I think she wanted to get that in there. I think she wanted to get in there that they had purchased a weapon for protection and that he was unalived the way that he was. And so like I think she wanted to get that narrative in at some point, or like during that pause, she thought of that. But because that wasn't what he asked, but okay.
About your interest in guns.
My interest in guns were twofold. One is the protection, which it didn't work, and second is the writing, which has nothing to do with guns, but has to do with gun pieces.
Right. But you said you became obsessed with
I was,
firearms.
I was obsessed with the writing and the gun pieces, not with.
So I believe the next place they're gonna go is to ask about going to a range because they have her going to a range. Let's see. This that was the part that I definitely wanted to make sure to cover. This case is was a lot. So she was found guilty of I think it was first degree. First degree? She was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years. No, sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. She'll be eligible after serving 25 years. She's 70, she's in her 70s, I believe. And so we'll see. That was likely a life sentence, but we'll see. What's the point of this when she's already been proven guilty? So we're just covering it. Somebody asked me to cover it. I appreciate the respectful question. Somebody asked me to cover this case. I had never covered it. And I recently covered somebody else's testimony, Ali Abulaban, who was very reactive on the stand. I have never seen somebody quite so aggressive. Daryl Brooks in the courtroom, he could get pretty menacing, but it seemed controlled and it seemed to be when he wanted the judge to kind of kick him out, he would ask to be kicked out and then he would do things. He would start yelling and screaming and having a little tantrum. This was very different on the stand. And I have just never seen anybody quite like that before. And so that's why I wanted to just cover this and to kind of take a break. So I'm currently waiting for the Corey Michelow, his case with his father, Christopher Gregor. I've been covering some heavy cases that we're waiting for. Chad Daybell also covered the Ali Abulaban. These are all cases that we're still waiting for. I stream on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And so we didn't have any coverage that I felt would add. And this was very, very, very wow to take a look at and to see how that lack of insight, that lack of awareness, her overestimating just how she was coming across. And I think she might have thought that she had made a positive difference with the case. To me, she made it 20 times worse. She made it so much worse. Thanks, Barb, for adding this. It took the jury, I guess, 3 hours to come back with a verdict. This is from this case. She was found guilty in June of 2022. The actual case happened in 2018. That was when it initially happened. I will have to look this one up. Thank you so much, Sarah. I will have to look up Pam Hupp. I do not know that one. Every so often, I will cover a cold case. I like covering cases that are current when we can, because we get to kind of take a look at them as they go. And then I'm gonna write down the one from Dominique as well. And then it's helpful because the psychological aspect for us to cover. If y'all have any specific questions, let me know. Um, so Zoe, I think she probably is like a I don't know. I don't know what she would be like in prison. I don't know because I do think this was a bit of a story that she was trying to tell. I do not believe she's released any books while she was in prison. I'll love that case, so I will. So Pam Hupp, I'll have to look at that one. I will. I covered her daughter's testimony and then also her testimony. I have a court playlist, so I try to gather my court stuff. I cover some entertainment news, and so I have an entertainment playlist. I do some just general psychological, like psych education, and I have a therapeutic resources playlist. And so yeah, I try to put those things there. Yep. Uh, yep. Yep. Definitely get that because you all were the ones that asked me to cover. Which one did I do? Because it was the expert went to the left. It's so funny. I don't even remember. I know it in my head, and then when I try to actually to ask you all, I forget. Oh, thank you to any new subs. I appreciate you all. This is a phenomenal community, and I really like getting to do these live videos with you all. Yes, somebody asked me to do the Jodi Aries one, and I did that one a while back. Sometimes I'll just be listening and watching a case, and it'll come up. The Corey Richins case, she has new counsel now, and I was really surprised that the judge let her other counsel off the hook. If you are following that case, Emily D. Baker covered the emails that were released in that case because there was some back and forth because the prosecution, no, the defense was trying to get the prosecution thrown out. I'll say that again. The defense was trying to say the prosecution had listened to calls, but one of Corey's lawyers refused to use the special app that lawyers can call and their calls not be recorded. He only called her through the main line, which is automatically recorded, and he refused to use the little app. And the prosecution would just because he would immediately identify himself at the beginning of any of those, and they just made note and they didn't listen to the full thing. But I think Corey probably wasn't happy with that, and supposedly he was concerned about the app tracking his phone I don't know, it was something weird. It was something weird. I get it. I had Timu on my phone and then I got rid of it because I got scared. I saw like an article and I got scared about it. And so, but the Corey Richins, but she does have new representation. Her case is likely going to be put off for a while. I'm definitely keeping a lookout on the Alexi Treviso. She's the one that is accused of unaliving her infant at the hospital. I'm definitely going to be covering that one. I believe that trial comes up over the summer, and definitely keeping an eye on cases. I will also let you all know because with the summer I'll have some vacation planned. I will try to still record a video to premiere or to come out and be released. And members will get early access to those videos. But I like to make as much of my content available to everyone for free because I really appreciate each and every sub. And so that's just a little extra benefit. If I do pre record videos to be released, members get early access to those. I prefer live. When I hear myself back, when I record a video, I always make edits, so it takes me 2 hours to record it and then like more time to edit. I'm not looking for an editor at this point, but I get emails about that all the time. But that case is really, really hard, really, really hard. And it's so difficult. Thank you, Barb, for being here. So many crimes, not enough time. Do less crimes. Like I have plenty. I would love for this case for us to like not have cases to cover. I would love it. I would absolutely love it. But until then, we will continue to try to learn from these things, try to recognize these signs. On my video about Ali Abulaban, there were a lot of survivors of DV, specifically narcissistic abuse, that came forward and just talked about how helpful it was for them. And so I liked coming out. Ace, do you mean everyone is not a criminal? Or That's why I try to cover entertainment stuff every so often. I did cover the baby reindeer. I'm not gonna cover the real person because, nope, I'm not gonna cover her, but I did cover the baby reindeer, um, series. It was wow. It was so wow. And, so I normally just say bye, but sometimes I say bye. So if y'all ever hear, my brother was the one who was like, "Did you know you say bye?" And I didn't even know. But I guess here, because somebody commented that they say bye to their friend because I said that. And so I do my best to read the comments that are posted. I do try to make this as accessible as possible. And so I will try my best to remember that. Sometimes I'm trying to not interrupt the content, like as things are playing. So that's why sometimes I don't read every single comment, but I will do my best to read them as they come up. I have a processing thing where sometimes you might hear me get stuck as I'm reading out loud. So that's sometimes why I might not read or my trains of thoughts. Like I can get interrupted really easily. I have ADHD, and so I can get thrown off really easily. So that's why sometimes I want to highlight something, but I might not read it out loud. If I didn't read it out loud, it might just be something fun for the chat and don't feel like you're missing anything. Anything that's really, really important, I will always say that out loud. All right. So I will always say that out loud. I'm probably not going to come back to this one. Was there an important part? Let me know. Like this one, I probably am not going to come back. I have the full link to the description, I'm not to the full video down in the description. I always include my links. I always credit where where I share things. And so I need to go hang out with my family. And the next time I go live will be Tuesday. And there might have been something. I'm thinking we might have a verdict for Daybell, maybe on Tuesday, maybe for Ali. So I'm thinking I might be doing one of those if we have a verdict back for either Ali or Daybell on Tuesday. If we have both, I will cover both. And then next weekend, because there's going to be the defense witnesses for the Gregor case. And so that might be next weekend. I'm not sure, but we will see. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.